The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with light, but the air was cold and heavy. Thousands of aliens from different worlds filled the seats. They came to witness the punishment of one man, a human named Elias Ward. He stood alone in the center of the hall, hands bound in silver cuffs that shimmered with energy. The guards around him were twice his size, their dark armor glowing faintly. The hum of machines echoed through the chamber, mixing with whispers from the crowd. Elias raised his eyes slowly. The room curved high above him, with crystal pillars and banners from 100 alien races. On the top platform sat the High Chancellor, a tall being with golden skin and eyes like burning suns. "Human Elias Ward," her voice boomed across the hall, "you stand accused of destroying the colony of Vethys 9. Thousands dead, entire families lost. What do you say for yourself?" Elias' voice was calm but low. "I didn't destroy that colony. I saved who I could. It was your own fleet that fired the last shot." The room filled with noise, angry shouts, disbelief, hate. To most aliens here, humans were still seen as dangerous and proud. Many believed humans should never have left their small blue world. The Chancellor raised a hand. Silence returned. "Do you have any proof of this claim?" Elias shook his head. "No proof you'd believe. The black box was destroyed. The only truth I have is my word." His simple answer made the council laugh. His words, honest but powerless, sounded like the last breath of a man already condemned. From a seat in the crowd, a young alien woman sat frozen. Her name was Lyra of Vethys, and her silver eyes shimmered with pain. She had been a child on that same colony, the one everyone said Elias had destroyed. But she remembered something different. She remembered being trapped under burning metal, choking from smoke, and a pair of human hands lifting her to safety. Her heart raced as the Chancellor continued. "By law of the Galactic Council, human Elias Ward shall be executed for crimes against life itself." The guards gripped his arms. Elias looked up at the tall judges and then smiled faintly. There was no fear in his eyes, only quiet sadness. "If dying means peace between us," he said softly, "then let it be." But Lyra could not stay silent. Her hands shook as she stood, her voice trembling. "Wait!" The sound echoed across the hall. Thousands turned their heads toward her. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "Who dares interrupt the council?" Lyra stepped forward. Her small frame looked fragile next to the towering guards, but her voice grew stronger. "Please, don't kill him." The hall erupted in noise again. Murmurs turned into roars. "Who is she? A traitor? Why defend the human?" Elias blinked in confusion. He had never seen her before, at least not as she was now. The little girl from the fire was grown, her silver hair glowing like the stars above. The Chancellor's voice struck like thunder. "Speak, child. Why should this human be spared?" Lyra's lips trembled, but she didn't look away. "Because," she took a deep breath, her eyes locked on Elias. "Because he's my husband." The hall fell silent, every sound, every whisper, every movement, gone. Even the hum of the machines seemed to stop. The guards froze, their weapons still pointed at Elias. The Chancellor's golden eyes widened in disbelief. "Your husband?" she repeated slowly. "Do you mock this court?" Lyra shook her head. "No, I speak the truth." Gasps filled the chamber. Some aliens stood in shock. Others shouted in anger. "This is impossible," one judge hissed. "No alien can bond with a human." The Chancellor slammed her staff down, the sound cracking through the air. "Order! Guards, seize her!" Two armored guards moved toward Lyra, but Elias took a step forward despite his chains. "Wait," he shouted, his voice raw. "Don't touch her." The guards hesitated. The Chancellor glared down at Elias. "You dare command in this hall?" Elias clenched his fists, his body shaking. "If she's lying, kill me. But if she's telling the truth, you'll have to question your laws before you end my life." The hall buzzed again with chaos. Lyra struggled as the guards grabbed her arms. "Please, he saved me when your fleets burned my home. He risked his life for me when no one else would." The Chancellor's eyes darkened. "Enough, take them both. If this bond is true, we shall see it." Elias and Lyra were dragged away side by side, their eyes meeting for the first time in years. In that brief glance, both felt the same strange pulse in their hearts, the same light that had once connected them through fire and fear. And as the heavy doors of the council chamber closed behind them, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The metal doors slammed shut behind them, and the noise of the Galactic Council faded into silence. The long hallway smelled of steel and ozone. Bright lights flickered along the ceiling as two guards dragged Elias and Lyra forward in heavy chains. Elias kept glancing at her, this strange, brave alien girl who had just risked everything for him. Her wrists were bruised from the guard's grip, but her eyes still burned with quiet fire. He whispered, "Why did you do that? You could have been killed." Lyra turned her head slightly. "Because I couldn't watch them end you." "Not again," Elias frowned. "Again?" But before she could answer, the guards pushed them into a cold, circular chamber. The walls shimmered with moving lights, recorders and scanners ready to capture every breath they took. In the center stood a floating table of blue energy. The Chancellor's voice came through a speaker. "Lyra of Vethis, you stand accused of breaking the sacred law of species purity. You claim the human Elias Ward is your husband. Speak the truth." The galaxy listens. Lyra's breath shook. She looked up toward the invisible cameras. "I speak the truth. He is my bonded one." The council murmured somewhere far above. Elias could hear voices through the comms, confused, angry, shocked. He spoke quietly. "Lyra, I don't understand. We met once. Years ago. On Vethis 9, you were a child." Lyra's eyes softened. "And you saved me. You pulled me from the fire when everyone else ran. You covered me with your armor when the skies fell. You told me to live. Do you remember?" Elias blinked slowly. Memories hit him like waves. Smoke, screaming, the burning colony, and a tiny alien girl crying under fallen metal. He remembered her silver eyes even then, full of terror and light. "I remember," he said softly. "But that was long ago. You can't risk your life for—" "I already did," she interrupted. "When you touched me that night, when your blood mixed with mine, something happened. Our hearts connected." The guards laughed coldly. Lies, alien fantasy. But Lyra ignored them. "For years I felt your pain," she said, her voice trembling. "When you were captured, I felt it. When you were beaten, I cried in my sleep. I didn't know why until I saw your name on the trial list. I knew then it was you. You were alive." Elias stared at her, speechless. The words struck deep inside him, stirring something he couldn't explain. The chamber lights dimmed. The Chancellor's voice returned, louder now. "You claim a heart bond forbidden under galactic law. Such a thing has never been proven. We will test it." The floor opened beneath them, and two hovering platforms rose from the ground. Metal arms extended, attaching thin wires to their temples. Elias tensed, but Lyra gave him a small nod. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "Just remember the fire." When the machine started, a beam of blue light connected them. It pulsed once, twice, then exploded into a swirl of color. Gasps echoed from the observation chamber above. On the council's screens, images flashed. Elias pulling Lyra from the flames, shielding her under his armor, giving her water from his canteen. Then came flashes of her dream, the nights she cried, calling his name, feeling his pain across the stars. The energy between them brightened until their hearts beat in the same rhythm. A scientist whispered, "It's impossible. The bond is real." The Chancellor's voice grew uncertain. "Enough, shut it down." The lights faded, leaving silence. The guards looked afraid now, unsure if they were standing before two criminals or two miracles. Elias breathed heavily, sweat running down his face. "What happens now?" Lyra looked at him with tears shining in her silver eyes. "Now they will fear us. A bond between human and alien threatens their control. They will never allow it." The doors hissed open. A tall alien officer entered, his armor black as night. His voice was sharp. "The Council will decide your fate at dawn. Until then, you will be held separately. If you try to escape, you die." Two guards pulled Elias away from her. As they dragged him down another corridor, he shouted back, "Lyra!" "Stay strong." Her voice echoed faintly. "I will find you." The doors shut between them. Elias was thrown into a small glass cell. He sat on the floor, staring at his hands. The faint glow of the neural wires still flickered under his skin, proof that something powerful connected them, something no council could erase. Far away, Lyra sat in her own cell, whispering softly to herself. "You saved me once, Elias, now it's my turn." Outside, the galactic capital city glowed under two moons. But deep beneath that beauty, whispers spread through the alien crowds. An alien girl claimed a human as her husband. A forbidden bond had awakened. Some called it blasphemy. Others called it hope, and as the night passed, the galaxy itself seemed to stir. Because when love crosses the stars, no law can stop what is coming next. The night before the final hearing, the great city of Vethis Prime slept beneath twin moons. But inside the council tower, no one rested. Lights burned across the upper chambers where alien officials whispered in panic. A human and an alien, bonded by heart? It was unthinkable. If true, it could destroy centuries of law and control. The High Chancellor stared at the glowing data screens. "Find the truth," she ordered. "Search the archives. Every record about the colony of Vethis 9. Deep below the tower, machines hummed as the council investigators searched old battle files. Many records were hidden, locked under classified access. But one young investigator broke through the security wall and gasped. "Chancellor, you should see this." On the screen, old footage appeared. Vethis 9 2 years ago. A burning colony. Alien soldiers running. Human rescue ships arriving late. And there, through the smoke, Elias Ward carrying an alien child in his arms. He shielded her from fire. He shouted for help. No answer came. He looked into a small camera, blood on his face, and said, "If anyone finds this, please save her. Don't let them blame humanity." The Chancellor's golden eyes darkened. "Erase this file," she whispered. "If the people see this, they will question everything." But it was too late. Another copy had already been sent to General Theros, head of planetary defense and Lyra's own uncle. In her cold cell, Lyra sat on the floor, whispering softly to herself. The neural light still glowed faintly at her temples. She could feel Elias somewhere far above her, his pain, his fear, his strength. Suddenly the door slid open. A guard stepped inside. "Someone wants to see you." Lyra looked up. A tall alien entered. Gray skin, crimson eyes, the mark of the Vethis noble line. Her heart froze. "Uncle Theros." He looked down at her, his face hard. "You've shamed our bloodline, Lyra. Do you know what you've done?" "I spoke the truth," she said quietly. He moved closer, voice cold. "Truth? You bonded with a human, a creature of war. You called him husband in front of the entire council. You destroyed our family's honor." Lyra met his gaze. "He saved my life, Uncle. You weren't there. None of you were. He carried me through fire. He gave me hope when I had nothing." Theros slammed his hand against the glass wall. "Hope? That human is the reason Vethis 9 burned." "You were just a scared child who imagined kindness in a monster." But Lyra shook her head. "No, I saw the truth in his eyes. And I felt it again in that chamber. The bond is real. Even your machines couldn't deny it." Theros' eyes flickered with anger and fear. He turned away. "Then you leave me no choice. Before dawn, you and the human will be gone. The council doesn't want witnesses." Lyra's heart dropped. "Gone? Executed quietly, no trial. No records." He leaned closer, his whisper cold as metal. "You brought this on yourself." Then he left, the door closing behind him with a hiss. Lyra sat frozen, her breath shaking. But in her heart she heard something, a faint echo, a pulse. Elias. He was calling to her through the bond. "Don't give up," the voice whispered in her mind. "We're not done yet." In his own cell, Elias opened his eyes suddenly. He had felt her fear, her tears. He pressed his hands against the glass. "Lyra," he whispered. "They're coming for us." A flicker of light appeared on the wall, then the screen lit up. A hologram formed, the face of a young alien scientist. She looked nervous. "Elias Ward," she said softly. "I know the truth about Vethis 9. You didn't destroy that colony. It was a secret military test ordered by the council. They blamed you to hide it." Elias's jaw tightened. "And Lyra? She was the only survivor they couldn't control. They thought she died. If your bond is real, it could expose everything." Elias's heart pounded. "Help me reach her." The scientist nodded quickly. "There's a maintenance tunnel. I'll open it during the morning shift. But once you're out, they'll hunt you both." He gave a small smile. "Then they'll have to run fast." As the first light of dawn touched the city, alarms began to echo faintly through the tower. Guards shouted down the halls. Inside her cell, Lyra's door clicked open, unauthorized. She stepped out, heart racing, and saw Elias standing at the far end of the corridor. For a moment, time stopped. Then they ran, toward each other, toward freedom, toward the truth that could change everything. Behind them, sirens screamed. Security drones turned their glowing eyes toward the escaping pair. Elias grabbed her hand. Ready? Lyra nodded. Always. Together, they vanished into the tunnels beneath the city while above, the council prepared for their final judgment, unaware that the most dangerous truth in the galaxy had already escaped their walls. The tunnels under Vethis Prime were dark, endless, and full of echoes. Metal pipes dripped water, and blue emergency lights flickered in the walls. Elias and Lyra moved quietly, their footsteps soft against the steel floor. The sound of distant alarms followed them like ghosts. Elias's body ached. His wrists were still marked by the energy cuffs, and every breath burned from the fight during escape. Yet when he looked at Lyra, tired, trembling, but unbroken, he found the strength to keep walking. We can't stop here, he whispered. They'll track us by the bond, Lyra nodded. Then we'll make them chase ghosts. She touched a small device on her wrist, projecting a faint map of the tunnels. There's a maintenance lift 3 levels down. If we reach it, we can reach the outer city. But before they could move, a low humming sound filled the air. Red lights blinked above them. Elias raised his head, eyes narrowing. Drones. From the shadows, 3 black machines floated forward, their eyes glowing crimson. Without hesitation, Elias grabbed a broken pipe from the ground. Run when I say, Lyra grabbed his arm. You'll be killed. He gave her a small smile. Not before they are. The first drone fired a plasma bolt. Elias swung the pipe, deflecting it against the wall. Sparks exploded. The tunnel filled with light and smoke. He leaped forward, smashing one drone to pieces, rolling to avoid another's beam. Lyra raised her hand, summoning her own alien power. Her skin shimmered silver, and a pulse of energy burst from her palm, slamming into the last drone. It crashed into the wall and died with a hiss. Elias looked at her, surprised. You didn't tell me you could do that, she smiled faintly. You never asked. For a moment they laughed, quietly, breathless, alive. But their joy faded when they heard boots echoing down the tunnel. Dozens of soldiers were coming. Elias grabbed her hand. We move now. They ran through the tunnel, following the flickering blue lights. The air grew colder. Behind them, the sound of shouts grew louder. At last, they reached a massive steel door. Lyra pressed her hand to the control panel. It needs a council code. Elias looked around. Then we make one. He ripped open a side panel, exposing wires. He twisted 2 together, causing sparks to fly. The door jolted and began to rise slowly. But before they could pass through, a deep, booming voice filled the tunnel. You can't escape your fate, human. They turned. Standing in the doorway behind them was General Theros, Lyra's uncle, surrounded by armored guards. His crimson eyes glowed with fury. Uncle, Lyra whispered. Theros raised his blaster. You've brought shame to our blood. You've broken the law. I gave you a chance to end this quietly. Elias stepped forward, shielding her. You'll have to go through me, Theros sneered. Gladly, he fired. The plasma bolt struck Elias in the shoulder, spinning him around. He fell to one knee, smoke rising from his armor. Lyra screamed, kneeling beside him. Her hands glowed as she tried to heal the wound with her energy. But the light flickered weakly. Her power was fading. Theros stepped closer. You think this is love? It's a sickness. You're blinded by it. Elias lifted his head, his voice rough but strong. No, this is what you fear. A bond stronger than your hate, he looked at Lyra. If they want a trial, let's give them one. Before Theros could react, Elias reached for the device on his wrist, the small neural transmitter from the testing chamber. He pressed the button. A surge of blue light filled the tunnel, connecting him and Lyra once more. Every guard stumbled back as their bond flared alive, brighter, stronger than before. The walls shook. The air vibrated with energy. Memories poured from them, every moment of pain, every act of sacrifice. The system recorded everything automatically, sending the data straight to the Council's main archive. Theros shouted, "Stop them!" Shut it down. But it was too late. The light had already reached the surface. In the Council's grand chamber, screens suddenly flickered to life, showing the live connection between Elias and Lyra. Every alien in the hall saw it. The humans saving the alien child. Their shared pain, their shared heartbeat. The proof of something real, something powerful. The High Chancellor rose to her feet, her golden eyes wide. Impossible, she whispered. The guards in the tunnel hesitated. Even Theros lowered his weapon, his hand trembling. Lyra looked into Elias's eyes. You're bleeding, she whispered. He smiled weakly. You always notice the small things, then the floor shook. Alarm screamed again. A voice echoed through the council speakers. Security breach confirmed. Bond verification complete. Prepare for emergency trial. Elias and Lyra stood surrounded by soldiers, the light between them still burning. Tharos stepped back, fear creeping into his voice. You've doomed us all. Lyra shook her head. No, Uncle. We've only begun to show you what's real. Hours later, they were dragged once again before the Galactic Council, but this time the crowd was different. No one shouted. No one laughed. They had all seen the Bond with their own eyes. Elias stood tall despite his wounds. Lyra stood beside him, holding his hand proudly. The High Chancellor looked down at them. "You've forced us into a new kind of trial," she said. "Not of law, but of the heart." And as the chamber lights dimmed, the council prepared to make a decision that would change the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council Hall was no longer silent. Shouts echoed across the crystal walls. Alarms screamed. The air shimmered with chaos and confusion. What was once the heart of order in the galaxy had turned into a battlefield of fear and truth. At the center of it all stood Elias Ward and Lyra of Vethis, bound together by glowing chains of light, their heart bond visible to every creature in the room. The High Chancellor's voice trembled through the storm. "The bond is real, yet it breaks every law we have ever written." Her golden eyes flickered between anger and awe. Around her, alien judges argued furiously, some calling for execution, others whispering that this human and alien could change everything. Elias felt Lyra's hand tighten in his. "They'll never let us live," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Then we don't ask for permission." Before the Chancellor could speak again, a deep rumble shook the hall. The floor cracked. Smoke rose from the lower chambers. A voice roared through the comms, General Tharos's voice. "This trial ends now. Eliminate them both." Suddenly, armed soldiers burst through the side doors, firing stun beams. Elias grabbed Lyra and dove behind the fallen podium. Blue energy bolts hit the floor beside them, leaving smoking holes. The crowd screamed and scattered. "Elias!" Lyra cried, pressing her hand against the air. Her silver aura flared, forming a shield of light that blocked another blast. He looked at her amazed. "That's new." She gave a shaky grin. "Love upgrades everything." Elias pulled a fallen guard's weapon and fired back, shattering the ceiling lights. "Head for the western exit," he shouted. "Now!" They ran through the narrow passage behind the council seats. Every corner glowed red from the emergency lights. The air filled with the sound of metal doors locking. Lyra's heart raced. "They're sealing the tower." Elias nodded. "Then we go up instead of out." They reached the base of a tall lift shaft. The elevator was offline, but a maintenance ladder ran all the way to the top. Elias looked up, grinning tiredly. "Ladies first?" Lyra rolled her eyes. "In your dreams, human." She started climbing fast, her glowing hands guiding the way through the darkness. Elias followed, every muscle burning. Below them, footsteps echoed. Tharos's soldiers were close. Halfway up, a blast shook the shaft. The ladder trembled. Elias lost his grip and nearly fell, but Lyra reached down, grabbing his wrist with both hands. The neural light between them flashed brightly, sending energy through the steel walls. "Don't you dare fall now," she shouted. Elias gritted his teeth, pulling himself up beside her. Not planning to. They climbed higher until they reached the top hatch. Elias slammed his shoulder against it. The door burst open and they crawled onto the council roof high above the city. The night sky stretched endlessly, 2 moons shining over silver towers and glowing streets. Lyra gasped softly. "We made it," but Elias's eyes narrowed. "No, not yet." Hovercrafts appeared on the horizon, black military ships approaching fast. He turned to her. "Can you still use your power?" Lyra nodded weakly. "Only for a few seconds, then make them count." The ships opened fire. Blue plasma bolts lit up the sky. Elias pulled Lyra behind a fallen antenna, then charged toward a landing pad where small courier ships rested. Alarms blared louder as security drones swarmed around them. Elias smashed one with his rifle and kicked another off the roof. Lyra extended her hand, summoning a glowing barrier that blocked the next wave of blasts. But her energy flickered again. "I can't hold it," she cried. Elias wrapped an arm around her, shielding her with his body as the ground exploded beside them. Almost there. He spotted a small shuttle, its engine still warm. probably left behind by a council officer. He rushed toward it, pulling Lyra inside, the door sealed. The control panel flickered in alien symbols, but Elias's military training kicked in. He pressed a sequence of buttons and slammed the throttle forward. The ship roared to life. Outside, Theros' fleet circled closer. His voice came through the comms. "You can't run, Lyra. You'll bring ruin to your kind." Lyra stared at the speaker. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "No, Uncle, I'll bring truth." The engines blazed. The shuttle shot upward into the night sky, breaking through the atmosphere in a streak of fire and light. Inside the cockpit, Elias slumped back in his seat, his wounded arm bleeding again. Lyra tore a strip from her robe and wrapped it around him gently. "You should rest," she whispered. He looked at her, half smiling. "We just escaped an entire government. Rest isn't really in the plan." Lyra gave a small laugh, tears in her eyes. "You always joke when death is near." "Helps me stay human," he said softly. Below them, the capital city shrank into distant light. But as they rose into space, hundreds of council ships began to follow, tiny stars of pursuit. Lyra's voice trembled. "They'll keep coming," Elias nodded. "Then we show them something they've never seen." He tapped a button on the console. A small disk ejected, a copy of the council's own footage showing their bond test and the truth about Vethis 9. Elias uploaded it to the Galactic Network. "Every world deserves to see the truth." Lyra's hand found his. "You just started a war." He squeezed her hand gently. "Maybe, but maybe it's the right one." As the stars stretched before them, the ship vanished into the darkness, two souls running from a galaxy that feared their love, but couldn't destroy it. The stars outside were cold and silent as the small shuttle drifted through space. Its metal skin was scarred from laser fire, its engines weak from the long escape. Inside the dim cockpit, Elias Ward sat half awake, one hand gripping the control lever while the other held Lyra's hand. For a moment, peace surrounded them, but only for a moment. A flashing light blinked on the console. "Incoming transmission." Lyra leaned closer, reading the signal. Her face turned pale. "They found us. A whole fleet, 20 warships, closing in fast." Elias exhaled slowly. "So it ends here?" Lyra shook her head. "No, it can't end like this. Not after everything." He gave her a small smile. "Then we make our end mean something." The ship trembled again as warning alarms screamed. Elias turned the shuttle toward a dark planet that hung below them, a frozen moon covered in silver mist. "If we can land there, we might survive long enough to send the final transmission." Lyra nodded, tightening her grip. "Then let's do it." The shuttle broke through the moon's thin atmosphere. Ice storms whipped across the surface, lightning flashing in the clouds. Elias wrestled with the controls, his jaw clenched. The ship hit the ground hard, sliding across the frozen plain until it stopped near a mountain ridge. Smoke rose from the engines. The cabin lights flickered. Elias leaned back, breathing heavily. "Still alive?" Lyra smiled weakly. "Barely." They stepped outside into the freezing wind. The stars glimmered above them, distant and cruel. Lyra wrapped her silver cloak tighter. "What now?" Elias pointed to a dark cave at the base of the ridge. "Shelter. We'll make our stand there." Inside the cave, the walls shimmered faintly with crystal dust. Elias collapsed near a rock, clutching his wounded shoulder. Lyra knelt beside him, trying to heal the wound with her light. But her power was fading fast. "You've used too much," he whispered. "Save it." She shook her head. "I can't watch you bleed." Their bond glowed faintly between them, a gentle blue light that pulsed with every heartbeat. It wasn't just energy anymore. It was life itself, keeping them both alive. Suddenly, a deep hum filled the air. The ground shook. From the sky, massive shadows descended. Theros' warships. Lyra's eyes widened. "He's here." Elias stood slowly, pain etched in his face. "Then let's finish this." He picked up his plasma rifle, checked the last cell, and smiled grimly. "One shot left." Lyra reached for his hand. "Together. Always," he said. Moments later, soldiers poured onto the frozen plain, their weapons glowing in the mist. General Theros stood among them, his armor gleaming red under the moonlight. "Elias Ward," his voice thundered. "Step out and face your judgment." Elias and Lyra stepped from the cave side by side. The wind howled around them, blowing ice and snow through the air. Theros raised his weapon. "You can't win, niece. The council already voted. Your bond will be erased from history. Lyra's voice rang clear. Then history will lie. The soldiers fired. Beams of light filled the air. Elias pulled Lyra behind a rock, firing back again and again. One soldier fell, then another, but there were too many. A blast hit the cave entrance, sending them both tumbling to the ground. Lyra coughed, dust in her throat, blood on her lips. Elias crawled to her, shielding her from debris. He looked at her and smiled through the pain. We're not done yet. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small data crystal, the last copy of the transmission showing their bond and the truth of Vethis 9. Lyra, you have to send this to the network beacon. The galaxy needs to know. Her eyes widened. What about you? I'll hold them off. Tears filled her eyes. No, I won't leave you again. Elias touched her cheek. You said once that our hearts are one. Then if I fall, part of me stays with you. Lyra sobbed, shaking her head. Please, Elias. He kissed her forehead gently. Go. That's an order, soldier. He stood, turning toward the approaching army. His rifle hummed softly. As Lyra ran deeper into the cave, Elias stepped into the snowstorm. Plasma fire flashed around him, but he kept moving, shooting, shouting, defying the entire galaxy. He was only one human, but at that moment, he fought like a legend. Lyra reached the end of the cave, where a broken comm tower lay half buried in ice. She plugged in the data crystal, pressing the final command. The machine came to life, sending a beam of light into the sky. Outside, Elias dropped to one knee, smoke rising from his armor. He looked up and saw the light piercing the clouds, their truth flying toward every world. He smiled weakly. You did it. Theros approached slowly, his weapon aimed at Elias. You lost. Elias looked him in the eye. No, General. You did. Then a massive explosion shook the ground. The shuttle's reactor set to overload. Flames erupted, swallowing the plane in light. When the smoke cleared, the fleet above received the broadcast. Every screen across the galaxy lit up with the forbidden footage, the bond between human and alien, the truth of the Council's lies, and the love that defied all laws. And as the fire faded, Lyra stood alone at the cave's mouth, the wind carrying her whisper. You're not gone, Elias. You're part of me now. Forever. The galaxy was no longer quiet. Across hundreds of worlds, people, human and alien alike, had seen the forbidden broadcast. The image of Elias Ward and Lyra of Vethis, their hearts glowing as one, burned across every holoscreen. It could not be erased now. Some called them traitors, others called them saviors. But to billions they became a symbol. The bond that proved love was stronger than law. On the icy moon where the final battle had taken place, only silence remained. The snowstorm had stopped and the wreckage of ships lay buried beneath white dust. From that stillness, a faint light began to pulse. It came from deep within the mountain caves, soft, steady, alive. Lyra opened her eyes. Her body ached, her cloak torn, her hands burned from the explosion. The cave around her was half collapsed, the air thick with ash. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then the memories struck. Elias, the soldiers, the blast. Her heart clenched. Elias, she whispered. She stumbled outside into the cold light of dawn. The entire battlefield was silent. There were no soldiers left, no engines, no life. Only her footprints and the wind. She fell to her knees, tears freezing on her cheeks. You promised me, she whispered to the empty sky. You said we'd see the stars together. Her voice broke. Please, don't leave me now. And then, she felt it. A pulse. Faint, distant, but real. The bond. Lyra gasped and pressed her hand to her heart. The light that connected them was still there, weak but alive. Her eyes widened. He's alive. Hours later, rescue ships arrived, not from the Council, but from the Rebellion fleet, a rising alliance of species who believed in the truth Elias had revealed. Their leader, a scarred alien named Captain Dareth, stepped down from his ship. He bowed to Lyra. "You're the one they call the heart-bonded. The galaxy saw what you did." Lyra's voice was soft. "Then you know we can't stop now. Elias is still out there." Dareth nodded. "We found faint life readings beyond the crater. Follow me." They walked across the frozen plain until they reached a ruined escape pod, half buried in ice. Inside, a human hand lay motionless beneath broken wires. Lyra ran forward, her heart pounding. She tore the metal aside and found Elias barely breathing. His face was pale, his armor cracked, but his heart still beat faintly beneath the frost. "Elias," she cried, lifting his head into her lap. Her tears fell onto his face, melting the ice. His eyelids fluttered open. "Still, here," he whispered. Lyra pressed her forehead against his. "You never listen when I tell you to rest." He smiled weakly. "Couldn't leave before hearing your voice one more time." Behind them, Captain Dareth's soldiers watched silently, awe in their eyes. None of them had ever seen such a thing, a bond between two different worlds that had survived death itself. Lyra looked up at the captain. "We need a medic, now." He nodded. "Already called. But you should know, the council has fallen. The High Chancellor resigned. The people demand change." Lyra's eyes softened. "Then maybe this is our verdict." Days passed. Elias recovered slowly aboard the rebellion flagship Aurora. His body was weak, but his spirit burned stronger than ever. Lyra stayed beside him always, caring for him, watching the stars through the window. One night, as the ship glided through space, Elias woke to find Lyra leaning against the glass, her silver eyes glowing faintly. He smiled. "You look like the sunrise." She turned and smiled back. "And you look like trouble, as always." He laughed softly, then looked out the window. The stars were endless, beautiful, and free. "You know," he said quietly, "I never believed one human could change the galaxy." Lyra took his hand. "You didn't. We did." Months later, a new Galactic Council gathered, formed not of nobles or generals, but of voices from every species. At its center stood Lyra and Elias, no longer prisoners, but ambassadors of unity. When they entered the grand chamber, the hall fell silent. The High Chancellor's empty throne now bore a new symbol, the intertwined emblems of human and alien hearts. Elias looked up at it, his voice steady. "We once stood here as enemies. Today we stand as proof that the walls between worlds can fall." Lyra added softly, "We are not mistakes of nature. We are what the stars meant us to be, connected." The crowd erupted into applause. Some wept, others bowed their heads. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy voted not for war, but for peace. Later, on the viewing deck of the Aurora, Lyra rested her head on Elias's shoulder as they watched the twin suns rise over a new world. "Do you think they'll remember us?" she asked. Elias smiled. "Maybe, but that's not what matters." She tilted her head. "Then what does?" He looked at her, eyes full of quiet light. "That we remembered each other." Their hands intertwined as the stars above shimmered with colors never seen before, a new dawn for all who called the galaxy home. And as the light spread across the heavens, a single message echoed in every heart that had once known fear.